Good morning. First thing I want to say, that's the lowest chanting I've heard since that time I hung out with some Benedictines for a couple of days. A bunch of monks. It was very low chanting.
It's not good, is it?
It's on, yeah, we're good.
Okay.
So this morning, before the service started, I led a workshop here for yoga for meditators. Pupusunum and I missed the rest of you. The goal of the workshop is to try to help folks who have trouble maintaining meditation postures in terms of the kind of the physical stuff, to improve flexibility so that you can be more comfortable when you're sitting in meditation. In turn, being more comfortable makes it more likely that you'll be more motivated to do it more often for a longer time if it doesn't hurt, So the workshop focused in particular on kind of the lower body, the lower back, the hips, the knees, the ankles. Those are the joints where stiffness can kind of inhibit meditation practice, and also where trying to force the body to do things it's not really adapted to do can actually lead to injuries, which obviously is counterproductive. So that's another reason to be careful with those parts of the body. So during the workshop, what I tried to stress is the idea that to benefit from yoga and other kind of stretching exercises like that, you need to take your body as far as you can go comfortably, and then just a little bit further, right? Just a little bit beyond that point. If you just go to the edge of what's comfortable, if there's kind of no strain, no discomfort, then it's not really going to do that much good. The ligaments and the tendons and so on, if they're not under any stress at all, there's not going to be any adaptation. Your flexibility won't improve. On the other hand, if you try to go too far beyond the point of what's comfortable too fast, it's likely that's just going to, cause injuries. That's just going to lead to too much stress, more than the body can adapt to. So, if you think about the body, most things are like that, right? Most physical kinds of things are like that. If you think about strength, or you think about endurance, or you think about speed, really any kind of physical performance sort of thing, if you go to the limit of what's comfortable, and then just a little over that edge, right? Then that into discomfort, just a little discomfort, then that'll be constructive, right? There'll be a benefit that'll come from that. You're probably familiar with the phrase, no pain, no gain, right? There's a little bit of truth to that, but the problem is a lot of people tend to think of this like they do medicine, and it's not good for medicine either. If a little is good, then more is better, which is not a good idea, right? And that's not constructive. So maybe it's more correct to say no discomfort, no gain, but the problem is we need to know the difference between discomfort and pain, right? We don't want pain. A little discomfort can be constructive, but pain is never constructive. If you want to be able to lift 100 pounds, and you can lift 20 pounds now, and you just keep lifting 20 pounds over and over again, that's not really going to do anything, right? Similarly, if you can lift 20 pounds now, and you want to be able to lift 100 pounds, and you try to lift 60 pounds, you're probably just going to hurt yourself, and then you won't even be able to lift 20 pounds. So that's, obviously that's not a productive thing to do. But if you lift 21 pounds next week, and 22 pounds a week after that, and keep going in that way, then you'll work toward that goal of being able to lift 100 pounds eventually. So manageable progressive discomfort. Maybe that's a good way to think about it. Manageable progressive discomfort could be beneficial. So obviously, that's true in the physical realm. I think it's also true in the spiritual realm. If you think about practice in particular, I think it applies there too. If you think about meditation, if you start a meditation practice and you sit 2 minutes a day and you just keep sitting 2 minutes a day, well, it's better than nothing. But, it may do you a little bit of good, but it's not really going to lead to much growth and that sort of thing. On the other hand, if you decide you want to establish a meditation practice and you go into it cold and try to sit 10 hours a day from the beginning, that's not going to work. That's almost certainly not going to work, right? You're just going to get bored and sore and frustrated, and you're going to quit, right? You're going to quit. You're not going to keep doing it. So it's not going to lead to anything. So it's easy to think about this with something quantitative, something we can put a number on, like how long you sit when you do sitting meditation. But I think this, if you can use the same kind of reasoning and apply it to kind of the breadth of spiritual practices and experiences and exercises. If you just kind of stick with the kind of the foundational stuff, kind of the initial stuff, the ones that are comfortable and familiar, and you just kind of stick with that. And you kind of never risk the discomfort of trying new things or new practices. It's sort of like, a grown-up person still trying to get around on the Schwinn with training wheels that they got when they were 8 years old and first got a bike. It's kind of the same sort of thing. You may be familiar with the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections that are listed in the Mahayana scriptures. These are qualities about ourselves that we're supposed to be trying to kind of develop along the spiritual path. So included in this list, we've got dana, generosity, right? Shila, virtue, jnana, concentration, prajna, wisdom, right? Those are the first 4. The other 2, I'm going to focus on the other 2, because the other 2 are relevant to this idea of constructive discomfort that I'm talking about. So if you think about kshanti, right? Kshanti is often translated as patience, right? But it also kind of implies forbearance or endurance, right? It's often discussed in terms of our relationship with other people, right? We should be able to bear and forbear the wrongs of others, that we should be patient with other people's shortcoming. We should endure when other people maybe don't treat us exactly the way we'd like to be treated out of their ignorance, that sort of thing. But you can also think about it as applying to all of our experiences, really, and our own emotional reactions to our experiences. We need to bear and forbear the anxiety that may result from engaging in a new thing or having a challenging spiritual experience. We need to endure the tedium and boredom that may sometimes come up during our practice and have the patience to kind of push through that, right, and come out on the other side. So that's the 5th paramita. The 6th one, the last one, is energy is a common translation of the word virya, which is the root of our word virile, right? To be virile, to be energetic. But it also means diligence and effort, right? It's usually interpreted as referring to being enthusiastic about specifically moral, virtuous deeds, right? Just as with physical activities like exercise, running, stretching, lifting weights, whatever, with spiritual practice, we need to be diligent. We need to make an effort. We need to be regular and consistent. We need to not give up when there's a challenge, right? To use an old Appalachian, I grew up in West Virginia and Kentucky, use an old Appalachian expression that I learned from my grandfather, we need to be work brickle, which meant, if you grew up in the mountains, that meant you need to be industrious, right? You need to be eager to make an effort. We need to have stick-to-itiveness, right? We need to keep with it. We need to not bail out on something when it gets hard, and that includes our spiritual practices too. So to develop this kshanti and virya, we need to challenge ourselves spiritually to grow by expanding our practices. We already do deepen the practices on our path by incorporating new things, new experiences. So as we develop these qualities, that will in turn help us deepen our spirituality. So there's like a feedback loop here, right? You develop your ability to be effortful and stick with things, and that leads to a deepening in the practice, which helps you develop those virtues to be better able at sticking with things and making an effort, which helps you deepen your spirituality more, and it's this constant loop. Deeper practice helps develop the perfections, which in turn motivates deepening the practice, which helps develop the perfections, and so on. But if you think back to the kind of the physical analogy, we need to do this gradually, right? Back to the trying to lift 60 pounds to be able to lift 100 pounds, but you can only lift 20 pounds. We need to do it gradually. We don't need to rush and try things before kind of the heart and mind are ready for them. We need to go to the edge of discomfort and then just a little over that, right? Not fall off the cliff over that, just a little over that. Sylvia Bornstein, the Insight Meditation teacher, there was a Q&A about physical discomfort while meditating that was in Tricycle magazine, and this is something that she said. When the discomfort you feel is significant, she's talking about what, like during sitting practice. When the discomfort you feel is significant, move. Adjust your posture. You want your mind to be focused and alert, but not hysterical. When the level of discomfort is past the level at which the mind can maintain its balance, it is no longer useful. Rather than a cause for the arising of insight, the discomfort becomes the cause of dismay and doubt and disappointment. Much better to stretch your body, relax, and start again. So the same thing's really true for spiritual discomfort, right? Moving into a spiritual space that's too far beyond your sort of current level of preparedness for it is like trying to sit in the full lotus posture with no preparation, no warm-up. All you're going to do is damage yourself. You're going to do more harm than good in the long run. Trying to go too far too fast on the spiritual path will just lead to feeling hysterical, to use that word that Sylvia Bornstein used. I'm a psychology professor. That's my day job. I teach my students about this idea called the zone of proximal development. There was this Russian guy, this Russian psychologist named Vygotsky, who came up with this idea. He was thinking about child development, the development and growth of children. He was convinced that all learning is more successful with good instruction, which can enhance development, and that can allow a child to mature at a quicker pace, more quickly. He understood good instruction as being instruction that pushes the child just a little beyond what they could figure out on their own. Less than that is pointless, right? If the child can figure it out on their own, then the instruction isn't providing any benefit. And on the other hand, trying to push the child too far beyond their current level of performance that's also a waste of time. The child's not ready for that. It's just going to be frustrating to the child. The instruction is going to go over their head, right? They're not ready for it. It'd be kind of like, trying to teach calculus to a second grader who can barely multiply. It's too much. It's overwhelming. So if the goal of the spiritual practitioner is to maintain a beginner's mind, if you're familiar with that phrase from Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, when he encouraged people to think about their practice, then in that sense, we're all eternal children in the Dharma. And our bhavana, our development, is a lifelong process. We need to try to keep ourselves in that zone of proximal spiritual development. We need to push ourselves and be encouraged by our teachers to go a little beyond what's comfortable and a little bit into that zone of constructive discomfort. Now, how can you do that? What are ways that you can go about doing that? I want to give you one example. It's something that's available right here at this temple. If you've been coming here on Sunday mornings and you've been sitting and chanting, and hopefully you've also established some level of practice at home, right, of sitting and chanting on your own, and you do it regularly, dare I say, religiously. But if you're comfortable with that and you want to step into that zone of proximal spiritual development, an obvious way to do that is to engage in retreat practice. To sort of take what you're doing already and do it more, right? You can start, obviously, with the mini retreats that happen right here at Muddy Water for most months, on the evening of, it's third Friday, right? Third Friday of the month, for a couple of hours in the evening, right? If you've never done that, spending a couple of hours in practice, sort of turning the searchlight inward in that kind of more extended way. You may find things unlocking, you may find yourself discovering things that in that just a couple hour period that an interminable number of Sunday 15-minute sits would kind of never maybe lead to. And that can be just a start. My practice, when I was getting started in Buddhism, there was no local community. I was like reading books and stuff and trying to figure crap out on my own. So my practice really started with retreats, going to a Soto Zen monastery for what they called weekend retreats. They didn't really get started though until Saturday morning, and then they ended before lunch on Sunday. So it was really more like 32-hour retreats. Is really what they were. But it's still a very different kind of experience that comes from that combination of intensity and duration, right? That don't happen during kind of a Sunday service here, especially when the retreat is focused on one period of meditation after another. Sitting, maybe a little walking between, but kind of and even doing that in a meditative frame of mind. Going to that Soto Zen monastery in the Japanese tradition, they call it seishin, but in Korean it's called same idea. It's called kyolche, right? Kyolche is this sort of intensive retreat. Make it longer than just a couple of hours. Think like 4 days, a week or more, and you'll have access to experiences again that are just unlikely to ever happen here on a Sunday morning. One short sitting in the middle of a service here is really, it's just long enough to find the door. It's not really long enough to open it and sort of walk through and start discovering things on the other side. The retreat experience simply gives more time and space. If you think about kind of a residential retreat sort of thing in particular, to rise from bed in the dark and come onto your cushion and sit down and start through, periods of meditation and have the sun come up and the light gradually grow in the room and kind of sit through that transition from darkness into light. And then at the end of the evening to reverse that process, right? To sit as the sun's just approaching the horizon and to start to meditate and to meditate through that transition from the day into the dusk into the darkness. It's just something. It's an experience. It's a very moving, I found it to be a very moving and enriching experience. And also to really experience the mind and all of its stuff in meditation, you really have to sit with enough duration and intensity to exhaust the internal storyteller, right? You have to go through, there's stages in this process, it felt like to me anyway. There's this stage of agitation where you just, how can I sit still like this? And then there's a stage of boredom, and maybe you're kind of fighting falling asleep and drowsiness and that sort of thing. And that moves along till you get to a point where, you start to get sore muscles and throbbing joints, and you may find yourself constantly asking if the timekeeper died over there or something, and if not, why doesn't he just ring the damn bell already? But at the end of that, you may get up one morning maybe, I don't know, day 5, day 6. And you get to your cushion and you find that your body just sort of naturally settles into the posture. And those physical sensations, they're there, but they're just not important right now. And the sound of your own voice kind of inside your head finally falls silent because you've finally worked through all of your own bullshit, and it just kind of shuts up. And there's nothing else to say. And you find that space between your thoughts and between your breaths just kind of starts to open up and feel a lot more expansive. And maybe you'll catch just a glimpse of Inwo-ko, what is this? And maybe just a hint, as the koan says, of the appearance of your face before your parents were born. Just get a glimpse of that. And then you'll know the path is real, and you'll find a new confidence, faith even, that where the destination it's leading to is true. But the reality is that that's never going to happen if you stay comfortable. Sonbola Shipshio, may you I and all beings manifest enlightenment. Thank you very much.